Hey everybody, this is D Hunter, bringing another action figure review. Today, we're going to look at the McFarlane DC Multiverse Collector's Edition Captain Cold. Not only that, but this is the Platinum Chase variant. When I first saw this Platinum announced, I thought, that's so dumb, it's just a frozen Captain Cold. But this is actually based off the Super Friends cartoon show, where he looked like this with a blue face. I ordered this from Big Bad Toy Store, so let's take a look at the packaging. As you can see at the top, 22 moving parts. McFarlane Toys, DC Multiverse Captain Cold, McFarlane Platinum Edition, McFarlane Collector's Edition. Here he is in the package. We have his freeze gun, 6 hands, 3 faces, collector's card, and display stand. One side of the package, Collector's Edition Captain Cold from the Rogues. This is the 30th figure in the Collector's Edition subline. Other side, Captain Cold. At the bottom, looks like Big Bad Toy Store put their own barcode on top of his barcode. Not that his barcode would help you, because the Platinum one has the same barcode as the regular one. And in the back, here's Captain Cold surrounded by some other Flash Rogues. So with no further ado, let's open him up. Alright, now that this figure out of the package, here he is with all the accessories laid out. Collector's card, display stand, 3 different faceplates, 6 different hands, and his freeze gun. Before we deal with all that, let's talk about and check out the figure. So this is Captain Cold. His real name is Leonard Snart. He's basically your typical freeze villain. He has a freeze gun. He's a member of the Flash Rogues Gallery. This is the Platinum Chase variant based off the 70s Super Friends cartoon show where he was drawn with a blue face. The costume has some details a little bit different from the regular release, which we will check out in depth shortly. In the meantime, let's take a look at him. So, starting with his face here, big smiling blue face. It's like a Smurf in a hood. He's got those traditional sort of rectangle shaped glasses, fur around the hood, a little bit of texturing on the hood there. This is based off the same body from the Page Puncher Captain Cold, and I think it works really well for this. I like the blue on him. It's not all the same color. You can see different shading on like the middle textured part versus the sides. He's got sort of a copper or bronze belt. He's got a fake holster on the side, which I find kind of annoying. Double jointed elbows, double jointed knees. Now on the first Captain Cold that I got, his face plates were falling out really easily. Now I got a second regular Captain Cold, and that wasn't the case with that one, and it doesn't seem to be the case with this one either. So my first one was just a one-off. Most of them are not like this. But as a whole, I'd say it's a very good-looking figure, and this variant, at first, I thought it was just dumb, but now that I know it's based off, it makes at least some sort of sense. And a closer look at his face and head sculpt, one thing that I notice around the sort of fur on his hood, it's not all pure white. It's like got some dirty parts on the edges. Nice little detail there. Beyond that, the face sculpt looks great. Sculpt is excellent, but the paint job is a little bit on the dumb side, but it does sort of make some kind of sense. But I'm really pleased with how this guy turned out, especially the regular version, but it's always fun to have a paint or platinum variant. And then here's the figure, broken down as far as he can go, with all of his removable parts detached. Now let's check out his accessories, and let's start off with the boring stuff. Here's his display stand, typical McFarlane display stand we've seen countless times before. The only difference is this one has a silver DC at the bottom because it's part of the Collector's Edition. And then we have his collector's card. As you can see, it's an image of Captain Cold. He's got some of the other Flash Rogues behind him. McFarlane Collector's Edition. On the back side, there is a description. If you want to read that, pause now. Now let's look at his hands. He has a total of 6 of them. 3 left hands and 3 right hands. Here he is with his first pair of hands. These are his fists. And then his second pair of hands. This is a pair of grabbing, choking, or possibly throwing hands. And here's his third pair of hands. This is a pair of gripping hands. Now they don't have trigger fingers, which initially bothered me, but the gun doesn't have a trigger on it, so it works out okay. And then the grip on these hands is so much smaller than the gun, but you can actually get in there with fair ease. Now let's look at his faces. He has 3 of them, one with a smiling expression, one with a pretty normal expression, and one with sort of a half grin. Here's a look at his first face. This has a smiling expression. And here's his second face. This one has the stern, almost cold expression. And his third face. This one has the half grin or smile going on. And if you're wondering what it looks like with no faces on, here you go. And if you prefer the paint job on this Platinum Captain Cold's body, you can put the regular faces onto this guy. Sure, what's behind it's blue, but you really can't see it from the front like this. Now to look at his freeze gun. Honestly, it looks kind of like a hairdryer. You can see it doesn't have the trigger there, so The trigger finger is not really necessary. And it is colored a little bit differently from the standard version. Standard version almost has more of a purple or pink look to it. This one has a little more of a red look to it. Here's Captain Cold holding that freeze gun. His gripping hand seemed way too small, but you can stretch it out pretty easily. The gun fits in there. The hand looks pretty good. Now to check out the differences and similarities between this Platinum Captain Cold and the standard version. And it is 100% same figure, same sculpt, same articulation, different paint job, so let's take a closer look. So, start with their faces. Obviously, one is blue, one is flesh colored. The glasses, his are black lenses, and his are white. Now, the actual blue is a little bit lighter on the regular version, a little bit darker on the Platinum. As you go further down, the belt is kind of gold, kind of copper. The holster is yellow, and then is white. And like I said earlier, if you prefer the paint job on this guy, you can easily put the regular faces onto him, whatever you want to do. Now to check out the differences between the Collector's Edition Captain Cold and the Page Puncher version. The Page Puncher was a unique McFarlane designed Captain Cold, and it looks kind of weird but kind of cool. I've seen a lot of people actually buy them for either Mr. Freeze or Captain Cold henchmen. They utilize most of the same body parts. Obviously the head and hood are totally different. And then we have this big, I don't know, shawl type thing covering up probably the sculpted parts like this. You can't really see, it's sort of connected in there. It looks like there is that same sort of hole and it's just glued onto there, which is fine. The torso and stomach look to be the same. The arms all the way down to the hands look to be the same. This guy has a different cape and hood. It looks like everything from the waist down is also the same. So it's exactly the same figure, except the paint job, the head, and then the sort of cape and shawl and hood type stuff. And you know what? I think it works. He's perhaps a little bit overly textured for the classic traditional Captain Cold, but I'm totally okay with that. I think it looks really, really good. Now that we've taken a pretty good look at the figure and his accessories, let's check out his height. From bottom to the top of his hood, standing about 7.2 inches tall, which can translate to just over 18 centimeters. And for his articulation, starting with his head, and the articulation is the hood and head together. You can rotate side to side. He can look up, not much. Down, really not much either. Can't really tilt his head from side to side. The hood's going to obstruct the majority of that. Shoulders on a ball joint goes out a little bit less than 90 degrees. Up, down, around. Once again, the sort of shawl thing stops from going up, but you can get it past there if you really want to. Bicep cut. Double jointed elbows. His wrist can rotate, and it is hinged as well. He's got a ball joint in his torso, rotate around, forward and back at least a little bit. Another one in his waist, rotate around, forward and back. Between the two, pretty good range of motion in the torso. Legs completely does splits, McFarlane style hip joints, rotation, it's decent on him. Legs go forward about that far, back not at all. Double jointed knees, and his ankle. Forward and back, rotate, tilt, rock, and toe articulation. Here's a look at the Super Friends version of Captain Cold in his cold layer. And here's a look at the regular one in his villain space. Now let's check them out. Next is some other action figures. Starting off with some other Captain Cold figures. Here are all of the McFarlane Collector's Edition Captain Cold figures that I have. I have the Platinum and 2 regulars. I got 2 regulars because that's just sort of a thing I do. I always get 2 of the Captain Cold figures that sort of look normal enough to use as possible Mr. Freeze thugs or henchmen. I started this trend back in Mattel DC Universe Classics. I always love my Batman villains, and I always want to make thugs and henchmen for them. And even though Captain Cold is fairly recognizable as who he is, I bought a couple of those DC Universe Classics version to use as Mr. Freeze henchmen. Honestly, I plan to eventually repaint some of their outfits so they look less like Captain Cold, but never got around to it. And so for each Captain Cold release, I got 2 of them, except for the kind of weird ones that I don't think work for Mr. Freeze henchmen. And here he is, with 2 different versions of the Page Puncher Captain Cold, which I actually deemed too weird to use as Mr. Freeze henchmen. But they made the regular and the metallic version, so in getting both variants, I kind of have 2 of those guys as well, giving me 5 different McFarlane Captain Cold figures. And honestly, I think they've done Captain Cold pretty much justice for the comics. They could do maybe an Arrow version if they wanted to, but they're probably done with Captain Cold at this point. Here's this Captain Cold next to a couple of DC Direct Captain Cold figures. I believe these are from Justice. These are a little bit on the tall side, but have that traditional Captain Cold look. I removed the glasses and used them for Mr. Freeze henchmen and cold attire. And here he is with a couple of more DC Direct Mr. Freeze henchmen. These guys had removable glasses, so I took them off just to make them look a little bit less like Captain Cold, and then added them to my Mr. Freeze gang. Then, next to a DC Direct, New 52 Captain Cold, I deemed this guy a little bit too weird to get as Mr. Freeze henchman, didn't have that traditional look, so I just got one of this guy. Next, with a couple more DC Direct Captain Cold figures. These are based off the CW Arrowverse. These are probably my favorite Captain Cold Mr. Freeze henchmen, as they don't have that traditional Captain Cold look, and they look just like regular guys in sort of cold gear, working for Mr. Freeze. Now, with a couple of Mattel DC Universe Classics Captain Cold figures. This is the first one that I got, and I got 2 of them with the intent to sort of repaint them, maybe one in a brown outfit, one in a red outfit, but never got around to doing it. I used these guys for Mr. Freeze thugs or henchmen, and it just sort of became a thing. And now, with a couple of Mattel Justice League Unlimited Captain Cold figures. Although out of scale with most of my collection, I just had to do it. And here's my entire collection of Captain Cold figures by Mattel, DC Direct, and McFarlane. Here's Captain Cold with all the McFarlane DC Multiverse Mr. Freeze figures. I always like having the different Cold villains team up. And here he is, next to a Mattel Young Justice Icicle. Icicle is another DC Ice villain. Mr. Freeze, Captain Cold, Icicle. I really hope McFarlane does a Killer Frost eventually. I don't think any company has ever made her, and I really want to add her to the collection of Cold villains. Then, next to a DC Direct, Ice. Ice is a Justice League Cold hero instead of a villain. Here's Captain Cold with some of the other McFarlane Flash rogues. We have Captain Boomerang, Heatwave, Captain Cold, Grilly Grodd, and the Reverse Flash. Now Captain Cold, Captain Boomerang, and the Reverse Flash all have their pretty much main looks. Heatwave is a kind of weird McFarlane design. I'd love to get a regular Heatwave figure. And Grilly Grodd is from Injustice with his armor on. I'd also like to get a regular comic Grilly Grodd. And then there's a bunch of other speedsters that are Flash villains, like Dark Flash, Godspeed, Red Death, but Reverse Flash is the main one. I would love to see them make Mirror Master, Weather Wizard, and Trickster, and then I'd be pretty happy with the Flash Rogues Gallery. Although give me the regular Heatwave and Gorilla Grodd as well. Here's Captain Cold, next to a couple of traditional versions of the Barry Allen Flash. Then, with a couple of traditional versions of the Wally West Flash. Here's the Platinum version of Captain Cold, which is based off the Super Friends cartoon show, and the Platinum version of the DC Classics Riddler, which is also based off the Super Friends cartoon show. I believe these are the only 2 figures based off that cartoon show. Sure, we have the Mr. Freeze and Penguin variants that are based off the Super Powers action figure line, and they fit in good with these guys, but I believe these are the only 2 specifically based off that cartoon show. So here's the McFarlane Collector's Edition Wave 1. Every single Collector's Edition figure has a Platinum Chase variant. Here are both the regular and Platinum Chase variants of the first appearance Superman, the Abyss, and Alan Scott Green Lantern. And here's the second wave of Collector's Edition figures, both regular and Platinum versions of Firestorm, Hawkman, and Sinestro. Then, the third wave of Collector's Edition figures, we have the Death and Return of Superman, Captain Carrot, Batman as Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman. Here's the fourth wave. This wave consisted of Penguin, Starfire, and Captain Boomerang. And here's the fifth wave of McFarlane Collector's Edition figures, both the regular and Platinum Chase variants of Sergeant Rock, Connor Kent Superboy, and Manga Batman. Here's the sixth wave of Collector's Edition figures, both versions of the Red Hood, Clock King and Dr. Time, Ragman, and Agent Liberty. And finally, here's the seventh wave of McFarlane Collector's Edition figures, both the regular and Platinum Chase variants of the Dark Knight Returns Batman, Huntress, and some Green Lantern Corps members. We have Tomar Ray, Evan Sewer, Arcus Chumuk, and the Green Man. And then here, next to the eighth wave of McFarlane Collector's Edition figures, Finally, I have this wave complete. Both the regular and Platinum Chase variants of Lightning Lad, 7 Boss Green Lantern, Geoforce, Grid, Christopher Reeve's Superman, and finally Mr. Terrific. It's been a long time coming, but I finally have this wave complete. This wave was unusually large. Usually it's just 3 figures, maybe an exclusive, but this one had 4 figures and 2 different exclusives. The next wave is going to consist of Power Girl, Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, and Captain Cold. Looking forward to those, and looking forward to finding out what the Platinums are going to be. And here's the 9th wave of Collector's Edition figures, both the regular and Platinum Chase variants of the Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, Captain Cold, and Power Girl. Now wave 10 of the Collector's Edition is going to consist of Adam Strange, Deadshot, and a Year 2 Batman. Can't wait to see the Year 2 Batman. We've already seen Deadshot, Adam Strange, and Deadshot looks fantastic. And since this Cyborg Superman is a Platinum Chase variant, I wanted to take a look at all the different McFarlane DC Multiverse Platinum Chase variants out there. Here are all the sort of older Platinum Chase variants. Gold, bronze, unpainted, and then some newer versions. And then here are all the 2024 Platinum Chase variants. Boy, they released a lot last year, and I'm sure there's a ton to come this year. And here are all the Platinums so far released in 2025. We have the 3 Collector's Edition Platinum Chase variants, and then a red Platinum, which is Scarecrow from Batman Begins. I believe the next Platinum to come out is going to be Nightmaster. He's part of the Flesher Superman wave, and he's going to be a red Platinum like Scarecrow. Now let's check him out. Next to some other recently released McFarlane DC Multiverse figures. Here he is, next to the Flesher Superman, the Walter West Dark Flash, and Tempest. Here's Captain Cold, next to the most recent Batman movie wave. Both versions of the Batman Begins Batman, Michael Keaton Batman, and the Batman Begins Scarecrow. And here he is, next to the Flashpoint Thomas Wayne Batman versus Reverse Flash 2-pack. Then, with the Joaquin Phoenix Joker and Franklin Murray 2-pack. And now, with the McFarlane Toy Store exclusive Icon. Here's Captain Cold, next to the Target exclusive Gold Label Wildcat and Orion. And here he is, with the most recent wave of Page Punchers, both the regular and Platinum Chase versions of Shazam and Captain Thunder, the comic version of the Christopher Reeve Superman, and both versions of the animated Red Hood. Then, with the King Kong vs. Batman 3-pack, and now, with the most recent Batman comic wave, both the regular and Platinum variants of the Silver Age Batman and Noel Batman, the Platinum Batman vs. Spawn Batman, and all 3 versions of the Batman Beyond Neo-Gothic Batman. And finally, next to the Justice League Task Force wave, Flash, Aquaman, Superman, and Batman Collectible Darkseid. There's both a regular and Platinum version of each of these 5 figures. Now let's check him out, next to some action figures from different various companies, so we can see how he fits in, both scale and style-wise, in case you want to know which lines you can mix him with. Since he's a McFarlane toy, they're typically the 7-inch scale. I'm going to start off my comparisons with some of the larger action figure lines I collect, and work my way smaller. But first, let's check him out with some of his McFarlane Toys brothers. In front of you are 5 different action figure lines, all from McFarlane Toys, all 7-inch scale. And now, with some Jack-specific wrestling figures, and some Diamond Select toys. Here's Captain Cold, next to a pile of ice cubes. And here he is, with some DC Direct and NECA figures. Then, with both some Mattel and Jazzwares wrestling figures. And now, with some Mezco and Mattel DC figures. Next, with some Mafex and Hasbro Marvel Legends. And finally, with some SH Figure Arts and Jazzwares Fortnite figures. So overall, it's a nice Captain Cold figure, but I much prefer the regular. He has that normal look from the comics. Sculpt, paint job, accessories, they're pretty much all there. Yes, it probably could be a little bit better if it were on a less textured body, but I'm totally cool with it. It looks exactly pretty much like it should, a traditional Captain Cold. Say I were to rate the regular figure, I'd probably give him an 8 out of 10. And then this one probably a 7 just because he has that blue face and it's a lot less desirable. Still, I'm really happy they finally put out a great Captain Cold figure. It's a fantastic addition to the Flash Rogues gallery, and I hope they pump out some more traditional-looking Flash Rogues. So this is D Hunter. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything you want to say to the video, add to the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate you do that. Once again, this is D Hunter. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll talk to you guys real soon.